Tonight on Evening Plus, we are learning all about the Kent County Deer Management Coalition. I am joined now by Rob Larson with GVSU and Jerry Byrne with the Kent County Road Commission. Guys, thanks so much for being here. This is a really interesting project that's been going on for a little while now. Jerry, I know I did a story with you a few months back kind of talking about this. What is this program? And then we'll get into how GVSU plays a role as well. But Jerry, start us off kind of the basic facts.
So the basic facts are we looked at a countywide basis and we're seeing a large number of car deer crashes and how can we work together to reduce those. So we brought in the Road Commission, MDOT, the County of Kent, the cities and the villages within Kent County and the 21 townships, because we know deer don't stay within a jurisdiction. So we thought it's important, if we're going to tackle this, we're going to tackle it on a countywide basis. So that's really what brought us together. Car deer crashes are the most important for the Road Commission, but there are issues with landscape, with agriculture, with disease. And then we brought in Grand Valley State because we wanted somebody else to look at it more scientifically, more holistically, really a third party to tie it all together scientifically. So that's how the original coalition was put together, and then Grand Valley partners with us, and that's where we're at today.
Yeah, and Rob, obviously GVSU, a big part of this, and this work has been going on for a good bit now. Talk to me a little bit about how the school plays a role in this project that's happening right now.
So basically, we were contracted with the Kent County Deer Management Coalition to do a data-driven project. And that's the biggest thing that we really want to emphasize. This isn't just necessarily looking at other research or best management practices. We're specifically looking at the data in Kent County. And a key part of that where we started was with public perception. So we launched a public perception survey last year just right around opening a firearm deer season, where we tried to capture as much of the public perception as possible. It turned out kind of awesome. There's approximately about 6,600,000 citizens in Kent County. We were able to capture right around 6,600 citizens gave their feedback. So we were able to capture about 1% of the county's input and perception. And we really found that it was all over there's different perspectives based on different parts of the county, cities. We published our report of findings with the county, and it basically gives all the public perceptions. I think we asked 8 questions from when people were observing deer, from some of the behaviors that they're seeing, what are their perceptions about the population, is it growing, is it decreasing, staying the same, and we published this report of findings, which is on the Kent County Deer website, so if citizens want to go there and look for that information, they can. Then we launched phase 2, which was spotlight surveys. Part of our contract with Kent County Deer Management Coalition is they provided partial funding for a grad student, so we have a grad student leading the data collection. So the spotlight surveys have been approved by Michigan Department of Natural Resources, Wildlife Division, Law Enforcement Division, and looking at some previous research, we came up with this data collection method to try and approximate deer densities in Kent County. Trying to get a specific number on deer population is super difficult.
Yeah.
But we're really looking at the densities. Are there certain areas of the county or cities, townships where the densities are higher? And are there areas that they're lower? Because depending upon how the densities play out, that's going to depend on what type of management potentially could be enacted in the future. And so we did fall and winter surveys. The first survey started in December, concluded right around the beginning of January, and then right now we're currently in our 3rd survey season. And what we're looking at as we look at these density numbers is how does seasonality affect deer density numbers, because deer are going to move differently throughout different seasons.
Sure.
Like right now, you're starting to see fawns being born and stuff, and so that's going to dictate how the deer population's moving throughout the county. Then our 3rd phase that we're working with the county is our public engagement open house, which we can talk about here in a little bit. And then we'll have one more round of spotlight surveys Then we'll kind of compile the data from the public perception, what the numbers we're seeing, and then we'll give a report of finding for potential recommendations to the coalition.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff that, you guys took a very scientific approach to, but it's something that really impacts everybody. Either you've been in some kind of a crash that's involved a deer's jumped in front of you, you've seen them. We had a baby, a fawn here actually on the property at WZZM just a couple of days ago. We left it be. And, like you were explaining, this has been a long project that you guys have been working on, really to gather all of this information. I can only imagine, how difficult it is. I did the story on the Spotlight survey when the grad students and the staff were going out and just looking for deer at night, and where are they and how many and all of that. And so now you guys are sort of moving to this open house portion. Jerry, if you want to talk a little bit more about what that is going to involve with all this incredible research that you guys have done as a team.
Well, it's really two-part. It's sharing what data we have with the public, but it's really more of a listening opportunity for us to hear the public and what are they seeing, what do they expect, what are they willing to participate in. So really, we think this is more of a listening session. We will have some presentation slides going in, but more or less, Grand Valley will be there, Road Commission will be there, the DNR will be there. It's really in the county of Kent just to listen to what the public's thinking and what they're hearing. We want some input, because this can be emotional, it can be sensitive from people that were involved in crashes.
Sure.
There's a number of people injured every year. There's over 2,000 car deer crashes every year. So it's a big deal from a traffic safety standpoint, but we want to hear what people think. And it's different in Tyrone Township than it's going to be in the city of East Grand Rapids. So we have a very diverse group in Kent County, and in what management suggestions we have are going to be varied depending on the location and the proximity of really the population, and is it a rural community, is it an urban? So it really, this is about listening for us. It's listening to the public, and we want to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, and ultimately, you have all this information that you're presenting, then you're going to listen. Ultimately, this comes back to, as you were mentioning, the safety issue that this is with, having so many deer in certain areas, how that leads to those crashes, which we know in situations are deadly, which is, of course, tragic. Is the next step to kind of see, what the public, I guess, is willing to have done to try and manage this issue? I know that can be a sensitive topic for people. Is that sort of the next step?
Well, I don't know if it's what they'll tolerate, if you will, but we need to hear what they have to say, because quite frankly, everybody won't agree with every recommendation.
Right.
Okay, we know that. We have to be science-driven. That's why we've asked Grand Valley to look at it. We need to be practical politically and personally. We need to be practical with that data. So we know recommendations are not going to be popular with everybody because they're going to be varied. Some people like to, in the hunting industry, they call that baiting deer, but really people just like to feed deer to draw them into their neighborhoods. While you may feed deer because you want to look at them, your neighbor's mad because they're eating all their hostas. Okay, so there's that give and take.
Very polarizing issue.
Yeah, within next door neighbors, let alone throughout a diverse county that we have. So we hope to have recommendations that will help reduce the number of car deer crashes that we have, the interactions that we have, no matter if it's eating your hostas or it's crashing into your car. We need to reduce that, because what we're seeing is the number of people hunting in Kent County and the number of deer harvested go down while the number of car deer crashes go up. And there's actually more deer killed in car deer crashes than there are through hunting for meat. So that number doesn't really, it's not a good correlation. We can't continue to have that grow.
And are you able to touch on, obviously you're going to wait to hear, what the public has to say, but as far as what solutions could be, can you talk about that at all?
Well, I think we need to finish hearing what the public has to say. I mean, there are solutions, because, you're not supposed to feed deer. I mean, there's already state bans against doing that. I mean, it's not only drawing deer into areas that they can't find natural food, but also can create disease spreads, okay, when you have deer eating off the same bait pile, if you will. Certain types of plantings, I think there's going to be recommendation on what type of plantings attract deer, which deer don't want to eat. So those type of recommendations, but until we're really done with the last of the survey, and again, like Rob said, we're looking at where these crashes take place and where the likelihood take place. So the recommendations could be based on where that likelihood of a crash is going to take place, because there's more severity there than there is certainly if it's just eating hostas. So again, there's so much we're not ready to come out with the final recommendations yet
Sure.
because we're not done.
Yeah.
We don't want to be premature.
Yeah.
I think the thing that's important to emphasize what Jerry's saying is that, it'd be real easy to put the cart in front of the horse on this. You have hunter groups that are going to have strong opinions, non-hunters are going to have strong opinions. And I think, like, with the data collection that we're doing, it's trying to remove some of that bias from people's everyday activities, and it's really trying to come up with a cohesive plan. I think that's Kent County really needs to be commended. The leadership of Kent County, the Road Commission, and the 21 townships, 9 cities really need to be commended for putting their heads together to try and solve this as like one body or one unit. We'll get a lot further ahead by taking this approach. And so I really want to emphasize that approach, that this is really unique. It's one of a kind, and there might be some people that are frustrated with the process, but this is really the best approach that we could take. So.
Yeah, sure.
As far as we know, this is the only countywide attempt to address the deer population in the state of Michigan.
Wow.
There have been smaller jurisdictions, a few townships, a few cities on the other side of the state, but this is the only one that's actually tackled this issue on a countywide basis.
Yeah,
So
county and all the communities within.
and all the communities within, so we're pretty happy with that.
So
Okay.
these open houses next week, what can people expect if they show up?
Well, they can expect, again, to be listened to. And if one thing we need to be as good public servants is to listen to the public. It doesn't mean we give them everything we want, but we need to get some input we need to hear because we won't get full consensus. So they'll have availability to talk to the DNR, to the county, to Grand Valley State University. Some of the cities will be there. So let's hear what you have to say so we can put it together. And then we could share data on what we talked about earlier with the car deer crashes, and where those are taking place, where the likelihood is going to increase. Grand Valley is able to put that together. And then again, listening is probably the single most thing is for them to have an opportunity to talk to government and tell us what they think.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything I haven't asked that you guys, want folks at home who are watching to know just about this whole process, this whole project, anything I've missed?
I think one thing we want to emphasize besides patience is for people to take the opportunities to get involved. One of the other things that we're doing at the open houses, besides providing some like simple things that homeowners can do, or let me rephrase that, not just homeowners, but residents in Kent County can do to do their part in this, is we're going to launch another public opinion survey that will start out there at the open houses, and then it should be made available to the public if they're not able to attend, so we can capture more of that public perception. I think to Jerry's point, we want to emphasize that people are, that the leadership is listening. They do care what their perceptions are, and so continue to engage as much as they can. Even if they don't know anything about hunting or deer specifically, if they just enjoy seeing them or they care about their community, I would tell them to engage as much as possible.
And to continue on at what Rob said, is this isn't something government's going to solve. Okay, it takes everybody to work together. It takes the landowners, the agricultural landowners, the suburban landowners, the city dwellers. It takes everybody to solve this problem. Government cannot step in and solve the number of car deer crashes we're having. Just can't do it. Everybody has to work together.
One of the things that people probably don't realize in Kent County, because the Road Commission does such an awesome job at picking up deer that have been hit by cars, is right now Kent County's on the trend of over 4,200 deer are being picked up off the road annually, which equates to approximately 180 tons of deceased deer that have been hit by a car. They're suffering in a lot of instances, and it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. If you go to some other counties, and I'm not criticizing the road commissions in the other counties, they might not have the resources. We don't know what their story is, but because Kent County has the ability, has the funding, and they do such a good job, I don't think people are aware of how big of a concern or issue this is. Not just for human health, but for the deer population as a whole. We talk about it's illegal for feeding or baiting deer in the state of Michigan because we have disease concerns, but it also draws deer into areas that we might not necessarily want them. You know, a lot of people, you know, they don't understand the whole process. It isn't just picking the carcass up off the side of the road where it's out of sight, but they're being discarded in landfill. You know, is that really the most ethical treatment for this deer herd? And those are considerations that, you know, we'll share at this open house.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's unfortunate that it's kind of grim and, you know, might be sensitive for a lot of folks, but, you know, we really need to ask ourselves in Kent County, is there a better way? You know, are we doing our best by the deer herd? And not just the deer herd, but, you know, this whole project's holistic. Like one of the things we're gonna roll out at this open house is some landscaping best practices, because we've had a lot of complaints through our public perception survey. People are spending a fortune on trying to keep up with their landscaping and the deer are just eating it.
Yeah.
You know, and it shows deer will eat anything in a pinch, but there are a lot of native species that they will try and avoid if there's potential other food sources. And so it isn't just about car-deer crashes, healthy herd, it's about healthy Kent County. And
Yeah.
so I think, you know, we really need to emphasize that.
It's a really complex, very multifaceted issue on, you know, lots of different components to pull in here that people may be sensitive to one or more than the other, you know, and thinking of the deer as well, like you said, and what's best for them. All right. Well, thank you so much again for being here. I really appreciate, you know, the thoughtful conversation explaining this, and obviously much more of that to come next week with those open houses. So Rob, Jerry, thanks so much for being here on Evening Plus.